There are certain faces that become woven into the fabric of our lives. Faces that we recognize instantly, not just from one memorable role, but from dozens of characters who made us laugh, cry, and feel deeply human. Catherine O'Hara was one of those faces. She was the frantic mother racing through airports and home alone, desperately trying to get back to her son. She was the eccentric, wig-obsessed Moira Rose in Schitt's Creek, delivering lines with a theatrical flourish that became instantly iconic. She was the voice of Sally in The Nightmare Before Christmas, singing hauntingly beautiful songs that generations have cherished. But beyond all these characters, beyond the awards and accolades, Catherine O'Hara was something even more remarkable, a genuine artist who transformed comedy into an art form, who made vulnerability funny and made us fall in love with imperfect, complicated, beautifully flawed human beings. On January 30th, 2026, the world lost Catherine O'Hara at the age of 71, following a brief illness at her home in Los Angeles. The news sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry and touched millions of fans worldwide who felt they had lost not just an actress, but a cherished presence in their lives. Her passing marked the end of a remarkable journey that spanned 5 decades, revolutionized sketch comedy, and left an indelible mark on film, television, and the hearts of everyone who ever watched her perform. This is the story of Catherine O'Hara, a comedy legend, a devoted artist, a loving wife and mother, and a woman whose rare medical condition never defined her, but whose courage and humor in facing life's challenges inspired us all. Catherine O'Hara was born on March 4, 1954, in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, into a world that would shape her unique comedic sensibility. She entered this world with something extraordinary that no one would discover for decades. Her heart and internal organs were positioned on the opposite side of her body, a rare condition called dextrocardia with situs inversus. But on that spring day in Toronto, her parents, Margaret and Meehan and Marcus Charles O'Hara, simply welcomed their 6th child into a bustling Irish Catholic household that already included 5 siblings, with one more to come. The O'Hara family lived in Etobicoke, a Toronto suburb, where laughter wasn't just encouraged, it was essential survival in a house packed with 7 children. Catherine's mother worked as an estate agent, while her father had a career with Canadian Pacific. It was a working-class household where creativity and humor were valued as much as hard work. Catherine would later credit her large Irish Catholic family with teaching her the art of getting attention through comedy. When you're the 6th of 7 children, you learn quickly how to make people notice you, and for Catherine, that meant making them laugh. Growing up in the 1960s, young Catherine was captivated by the comedians and performers she watched on television. She absorbed everything from classic Hollywood films to the emerging sketch comedy shows that were beginning to define a new era of humor. She attended Binghamthorpe Collegiate for high school, where one of her classmates was Robin Duke, who would also go on to become a successful comedian. Even then, Catherine had a gift for impersonation and character work. She could mimic voices, capture mannerisms, and transform herself into different people with an ease that seemed almost supernatural. But Catherine didn't initially set out to be a performer. Like many young people trying to find their way, she took various jobs after high school, including working as a waitress. It was this waitressing job that would change the trajectory of her entire life. She began working at the Second City Toronto, the Canadian branch of the legendary improvisational comedy theater that had launched the careers of countless comedy icons. Surrounded by performers, writers, and the electric energy of live comedy, Catherine couldn't resist the pull of the stage. The Second City was more than just a comedy club. It was a training ground for a revolution in humor. The improvisational techniques taught there emphasized listening, collaboration, spontaneity, and truth in comedy. Performers learned to build characters from the inside out, to find the humanity and vulnerability in even the most absurd situations. For Catherine, it was like finding her true home. She began taking classes, performing in shows, and honing her craft with an intensity and dedication that would become her hallmark. The breakthrough came when Gilda Radner, who had been part of the Second City Toronto cast, left to join Saturday Night Live in New York. Catherine successfully auditioned to replace her, stepping into a role that would launch her professional career. Suddenly, she wasn't serving tables anymore. She was on stage, creating characters, earning laughs, and discovering what she was truly meant to do. Her talent for transformation was immediately apparent. She could become anyone: a nervous housewife, an over-the-top celebrity, a befuddled teacher, with such complete commitment that audiences believed every moment. In 1976, Catherine O'Hara became one of the original cast members of SCTV, which stood for Second City Television. This Canadian sketch comedy show would become one of the most influential comedy programs in television history, and Catherine would be at its creative heart for nearly a decade. SCTV was different from other sketch shows. Rather than presenting sketches as standalone pieces, the show operated under the conceit of being a low-budget television station in the fictional town of Melonville. This framework allowed for brilliant meta-humor and created a universe where recurring characters could develop and evolve. Catherine's talent exploded on SCTV. She created an astonishing gallery of memorable characters, each one fully realized with distinct voices, mannerisms, and personalities. There was Lola Heatherton, the grotesquely cheerful and oblivious celebrity; Dusty Town, a washed-up country singer with too much hairspray and not enough self-awareness; and Perini Scleroso, an affected European housewife. But perhaps her most impressive skill was her impersonations of real celebrities. Catherine's impressions of Katharine Hepburn, Meryl Streep, Brooke Shields, Lucille Ball, and numerous other stars weren't mere mimicry. They were character studies that captured something essential about these performers while also being hilariously exaggerated. What set Catherine apart from many other comedy performers was her willingness to be completely, fearlessly unvain. She would distort her face, adopt ridiculous voices, and throw herself into absurd physical comedy without any concern for looking attractive or dignified. This total commitment to the comedy, to serving the character rather than her own image, made her performances electric. You couldn't look away from her, especially when, she was being utterly ridiculous. The SCTV cast worked together with remarkable chemistry. Catherine developed especially close collaborative relationships with Eugene Levy, John Candy, Martin Short, Andrea Martin, and Rick Moranis. These weren't just co-workers; they became lifelong friends and creative partners. The show ran from 1976 to 1984, with Catherine leaving and returning during various seasons, but always remaining one of its essential elements. The writing was brilliant, sharp, and sophisticated, and it demanded performers who could match that intelligence with their performances. Catherine not only matched it, she elevated it. In 1982, Catherine won her first Emmy Award for Outstanding Writing in a Variety or Music Program for her work on SCTV. It was recognition from the industry that what she and her colleagues were creating wasn't just funny, it was art. The show developed a devoted cult following and influenced an entire generation of comedy writers and performers. Decades later, comedians still cite SCTV as a formative influence, and Catherine O'Hara's work on the show remains a masterclass in character comedy. Working in television sketch comedy taught Catherine invaluable skills that she would carry throughout her career. She learned how to build a character quickly, how to find the comedy in specificity, how to listen and react in the moment, and how to trust her instincts. These skills would serve her brilliantly as she transitioned into film and long-form television work, where the challenges were different, but the fundamental craft remained the same. While SCTV made Catherine O'Hara a comedy icon in television, it was her film work that would introduce her to global audiences and cement her status as one of the most versatile actresses of her generation. Her film debut came in 1980 with Double Negative, but it was throughout the 1980s and early 1990s that she would create some of her most memorable cinematic characters. In 1988, Catherine began one of the most important creative partnerships of her career when she was cast in Tim Burton's Beetlejuice. Playing Delia Dietz, the pretentious and eccentric stepmother obsessed with modern art and New Age spirituality, Catherine created a character who was both ridiculous and oddly sympathetic. Delia was over the top, self-absorbed, and completely oblivious to how absurd she appeared, but Catherine's performance gave her humanity. You laughed at Delia, but you also understood her desperate need to be seen as cultured and sophisticated. The film was a massive success, and Catherine's performance was widely praised. But the most significant outcome of Beetlejuice had nothing to do with box office numbers or reviews. On the set, Catherine met Bo Welch, the film's production designer. Bo was responsible for the movie's distinctive visual style, and Catherine was immediately drawn to his creativity and artistic vision. Their connection was instant and profound. They began a relationship that would lead to marriage in 1992 and a partnership that would last for more than 3 decades, producing not just a loving marriage, but also 2 sons and numerous collaborative projects. The Burton collaboration continued and deepened. In 1993, Catherine provided the voice for Sally, the ragdoll creation in Tim Burton's stop-motion masterpiece, The Nightmare Before Christmas. This wasn't a small voice role. Sally was one of the film's central characters, and the role required Catherine to sing. Her hauntingly beautiful performance of Sally's song became one of the movie's most beloved moments. Catherine also voiced Jacques, one of the trick-or-treating henchchildren, demonstrating her range even within a single animated film. The Nightmare Before Christmas became a cultural phenomenon, introducing Catherine's voice to an entirely new generation of fans who might never have seen her in live-action roles. The Burton partnership would continue throughout her career. In 2012, she returned to work with him on Frankenweenie, another stop-motion animated film, voicing multiple characters including Susan Frankenstein, the gym teacher, and Weird Girl. Her ability to create distinct, memorable characters through voice alone showcased yet another dimension of her extraordinary talent. Then, in 2024, Catherine reprised her role as Delia Dietz in Beetlejuice, the long-awaited sequel that brought her character back more than 3 decades after the original. It was a full-circle moment that delighted fans who had grown up with the original film. Tim Burton would later pay tribute to Catherine after her death, posting on social media, "Catherine brought light and truth to everything she touched. Working with her was always a gift." Coming from a director known for his specific artistic vision and his careful selection of collaborators, this was high praise indeed. In 1990, Catherine O'Hara took on a role that would make her one of the most recognizable faces in the world and transform her into a holiday season institution. Playing Kate McAllister in Home Alone, Catherine became the frantic, guilt-ridden mother desperately trying to reunite with her accidentally abandoned son Kevin during Christmas. On paper, the role could have been one-dimensional, just a worried mom. But Catherine brought emotional depth, genuine panic, maternal warmth, and comedy to Kate that made her the emotional anchor of the entire film. Who can forget the scene where Kate suddenly realizes, mid-flight to Paris, that they've forgotten Kevin? Catherine's face contorts in horror as she screams, "Kevin!" with such visceral terror that it became instantly iconic. Or the scene where she finally reunites with her son, and her joy and relief are so palpable that audiences in theaters around the world felt their own eyes welling up. Catherine understood that Kate's journey wasn't just about getting home. It was about a mother confronting her worst fear and her deepest guilt. Director Chris Columbus later revealed that Catherine brought ideas to the role that weren't in the original script. She suggested Kate's profession as a fashion designer, which explained the family's affluence and added depth to the character. She understood that Kate needed to be more than just Kevin's mom. She needed to be a fully realized person with her own life, dreams, and regrets. This attention to character detail, this refusal to simply phone in a supporting role, was typical of Catherine's approach to every project. Home Alone became a cultural juggernaut, grossing over $476 million worldwide and becoming the highest-grossing comedy film at the time. It turned young Macaulay Culkin into one of the biggest child stars in history, but it also showcased Catherine's ability to ground even the most outlandish comedy in emotional reality. The film has been watched by billions of people over the decades since its release, becoming an essential part of holiday traditions for families around the world. Every Christmas season, new generations discover Kate McAllister's desperate journey home, and Catherine's performance continues to touch hearts. She reprised the role in 1992's Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, where Kate had to once again deal with Kevin being separated from the family, this time in New York City. While the sequel couldn't capture the lightning-in-a-bottle magic of the original, Catherine's performance remained committed and genuine. She brought the same emotional authenticity to the sequel that she had to the first film, refusing to treat it as merely a paycheck. The impact of Home Alone on Catherine's life and career cannot be overstated. It made her instantly recognizable around the world. Decades after the film's release, people would still approach her to talk about the movie, to quote lines, or simply to thank her for being part of their childhood memories. Macaulay Culkin, who played Kevin, remained close to Catherine throughout her life. When news of her death broke, Culkin posted a heartbreaking tribute on social media. "Mama, I thought we had time." This simple message, calling her by the character name that millions knew her by, captured the depth of their bond and the loss felt by those who knew her personally. While Catherine had found success in mainstream Hollywood comedies, some of her most sophisticated and critically acclaimed work came from her collaborations with director Christopher Guest. Guest pioneered a form of filmmaking that blended improvisation with mockumentary structure, creating films that felt documentary real while being hilariously fictional. These films required actors who could improvise naturally, stay in character completely, and create comedy that felt organic rather than written. Catherine was perfect for this approach. In 2000, Catherine appeared in Best in Show, a mockumentary about competitive dog showing. She played Cookie Fleck, a woman with a very colorful sexual past who attends a dog show with her husband. Catherine's performance was a masterclass in finding comedy in the specific details of a character. Cookie wasn't just generically promiscuous. She was a particular type of person, and Catherine inhabited her completely. Her deadpan delivery of outrageous lines made them even funnier, and her chemistry with Eugene Levy, who played her mortified husband, created some of the film's most memorable moments. She continued working with Guest on A Mighty Wind, 2003, playing Mickey Crab, one half of a formerly famous folk duo. For this role, Catherine had to sing extensively, performing period-appropriate folk songs with genuine skill. The film earned her and Eugene Levy nominations for Best Song at the Academy Awards for A Kiss at the End of the Rainbow, a beautiful ballad that showcased Catherine's surprisingly lovely singing voice. The performance demonstrated yet again that Catherine wasn't just a comedy actress. She was a complete performer capable of dramatic singing, emotional vulnerability, and nuanced character work. In For Your Consideration, 2006, Catherine played Marilyn Hack, an aging actress who believed she might finally get Oscar recognition for her role in a terrible independent film. The character allowed Catherine to explore the desperation, vanity, and vulnerability of actors seeking validation in an industry that can be cruel and fickle. It was a role that required both comedy and pathos, and Catherine delivered both in equal measure. The Christopher Guest films have developed devoted cult followings over the years, and Catherine's contributions to them are consistently praised by critics and fans. These films demonstrated that Catherine didn't need elaborate makeup, costumes, or special effects to create unforgettable characters. All she needed was her talent, her intelligence, and her complete commitment to truth in performance. Beyond the cameras, lights, and adoring audiences, Catherine O'Hara built a life characterized by love, stability, and strong family bonds. Her marriage to Bo Welch, which began in 1992 after they met on the set of Beetlejuice, was a true partnership that lasted until her death. Bo, an accomplished production designer and art director who had worked on films ranging from Edward Scissorhands to Men in Black, understood the demands and rhythms of the entertainment industry. He and Catherine supported each other's careers while creating a stable home base. In 1994, Catherine and Bo welcomed their first son, Matthew Welch. Catherine, who was 40 at the time, embraced motherhood with the same commitment she brought to her work. She spoke openly in interviews about how becoming a mother changed her perspective on life and her career. 2 years later, in 1997, she gave birth to their second son, Luke Welch. While Catherine continued working after becoming a mother, she was selective about projects, often choosing roles that would allow her to maintain balance between her professional and family life. Both Matthew and Luke eventually followed their parents into the film industry, though they chose to work primarily behind the scenes. Matthew worked in various crew positions on film and television productions, while Luke pursued work in production departments. Catherine rarely spoke publicly about her sons in detail, respecting their privacy and their desire to forge their own paths without being constantly identified as Catherine O'Hara's sons. But when she did mention them in interviews, her love and pride were unmistakable. Catherine and Bo split their time between Los Angeles and Toronto, maintaining connections to both the American entertainment industry and Catherine's Canadian roots. She held dual Canadian and American citizenship and spoke proudly of her Canadian heritage throughout her life. She never forgot where she came from or lost the essential down-to-earth quality that made her so relatable despite her fame. The O'Hara-Welch household was, by all accounts, a warm and creative place. Catherine and Bo shared artistic sensibilities, and their home reflected Bo's design expertise and Catherine's eclectic taste. Friends described visiting their home as always feeling welcomed, comfortable, and likely to be surprised by some creative project in progress. Catherine loved cooking, gardening, and spending quiet time with her family when she wasn't working. Throughout her marriage, Catherine maintained close friendships with her longtime collaborators, especially Eugene Levy. Their creative partnership, which began at Second City and continued through SCTV, multiple Christopher Guest films, and ultimately Schitt's Creek, was one of the entertainment industry's most enduring and successful collaborations. They understood each other's rhythms, trusted each other completely, and brought out the best in each other's performances. Beyond their professional relationship, they were genuine friends who supported each other through decades of changes in their lives and careers. After decades of acclaimed work in film and television, Catherine O'Hara experienced a remarkable career resurgence in her 60s with a role that would introduce her to an entirely new generation and earn her some of the highest accolades of her career. In 2015, she was cast as Moira Rose in Schitt's Creek, a CBC sitcom created by Dan Levy and starring Dan alongside his father, Eugene Levy, Catherine's longtime collaborator. The premise of Schitt's Creek was simple. A wealthy family loses everything and is forced to rebuild their lives in a small town they once bought as a joke. Catherine played Moira Rose, the family's dramatically over-the-top matriarch, a former soap opera star who had never worked a day outside of acting and was utterly unprepared for life without wealth and staff. Moira was a gift of a role, and Catherine seized it with both hands. Moira Rose became an instant icon. Her rotating collection of elaborate wigs, her theatrical manner of speaking with its affected transatlantic accent and peculiar pronunciations, her designer wardrobe of black and white ensembles, and her complete self-absorption made her hilarious. But what made the character brilliant, what made audiences fall in love with Moira despite her narcissism, was the vulnerability and genuine emotion that Catherine brought to the role. As the series progressed, we saw Moira grow, develop real relationships with the townspeople, repair her connection with her children, and discover parts of herself she'd never known existed. Catherine made bold choices with Moira's voice and manner of speaking. She mixed accents in mid-sentence, emphasizing unexpected syllables, creating a way of speaking that was completely unique and utterly Moira. She worked closely with the costume department to develop Moira's distinctive look, including the decision to have Moira wear exclusively wigs, which became one of the character's most recognizable traits. Catherine understood that Moira's costumes and wigs were armor, ways of maintaining control and identity when everything else had been stripped away. Schitt's Creek started as a modest Canadian production with limited viewership, but it grew steadily in popularity, especially after being picked up by Netflix for international streaming. By its final season, the show had become a cultural phenomenon. The series finale attracted millions of viewers and left audiences emotionally devastated in the best possible way. The acclaim for Catherine's performance was overwhelming and well-deserved. In 2020, she won the Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Comedy Series for playing Moira Rose. Winning her second Emmy, nearly 4 decades after her first, was a powerful full-circle moment. She also won the Golden Globe Award for Best Actress in a Television Series, Musical, or Comedy, 2 Screen Actors Guild Awards, and multiple other honors. At the Emmy ceremony, when Schitt's Creek swept the comedy categories in an unprecedented clean sweep, Catherine's joy and gratitude were palpable. She had been creating brilliant comic performances for 5 decades, and finally, the industry was giving her the recognition she had always deserved. Moira Rose became one of those characters that transcends the show she's in. People who had never watched Schitt's Creek knew about Moira's wigs, her vocabulary, her style. The character inspired Halloween costumes, YouTube compilation videos, academic analyses, and endless social media tributes. Catherine attended fan conventions and experienced the strange joy of seeing young fans dressed as Moira, complete with wigs and exaggerated accents. She was always gracious, always willing to engage with fans who wanted to share what Moira and the show meant to them. What made this Schitt's Creek success especially meaningful was that it came relatively late in Catherine's career, when many actresses her age struggle to find substantial roles. Hollywood has never been kind to aging women, but Catherine's work as Moira Rose proved that talent, intelligence, and comic genius don't diminish with age. They deepen and enrich. She became an inspiration for older actresses and for anyone who wondered if it was too late for their big break or their career renaissance. The final episode of Schitt's Creek aired in April 2020, concluding the series on its own terms with a beautiful, emotionally satisfying finale that left fans weeping happy tears. Catherine's performance in the final season, particularly in the episode where Moira directs a local production of Cabaret, showcased the full range of her abilities: comedy, drama, vulnerability, and strength all woven together seamlessly. In 2020, during a virtual happy hour event with winemaker Catherine Hall, Catherine O'Hara casually mentioned something that startled many people who heard it. She had been born with a rare condition called dextrocardia, with situs inversus. This meant that her heart and major internal organs were positioned on the opposite side of her body from where they normally would be. Her heart pointed toward the right side of her chest rather than the left, and other organs were similarly reversed or mirrored. Catherine explained that she had discovered this condition accidentally during a routine doctor's visit with her husband Bo more than 20 years earlier. The doctor was attempting to listen to her heart on the left side of her chest and couldn't find it. There was a moment of panic before the doctor realized what was happening and found her heart on the right side instead. It was an astonishing discovery to make as an adult. Catherine had lived more than 4 decades without knowing that her internal anatomy was different from most people's. Dextrocardia with situs inversus is rare, occurring in approximately 1 in 10,000 people. For most people with the condition, it causes no symptoms or health problems. The organs function normally. They're simply arranged in a mirror image of typical anatomy. Many people with situs inversus go their entire lives without knowing they have it, only discovering it incidentally during medical imaging for other reasons. Catherine was one of these cases. Her condition had never caused her any noticeable health issues throughout her life. When she spoke about it publicly, Catherine approached the topic with her characteristic humor and perspective. She joked about being lucky to be alive and said she didn't mind aging because every year felt like a bonus given how extraordinary it was to have this rare condition. She was matter-of-fact about it, neither treating it as a dramatic medical crisis nor as something to hide. It was simply a fact about her body, an unusual quirk that made her even more unique than her talent already did. Medical experts noted that Catherine's openness about her condition helped raise awareness about situs inversus and reminded people that rare conditions aren't necessarily dangerous or limiting. Expert comment could be included here, explained that people with isolated situs inversus, where the organs are reversed but otherwise normal, typically live completely normal lives with normal life expectancies. The condition itself doesn't require treatment and doesn't prevent people from doing anything they want to do. Catherine's attitude toward her condition reflected her broader philosophy about life and aging. In interviews, she often spoke about being grateful for each day, for the opportunities she'd had, and for the love in her life. She didn't waste time on vanity or worrying about things she couldn't control. She approached aging with grace and humor, refusing to buy into the Hollywood pressure to remain forever young. When asked about getting older, she would laugh and say that she felt lucky to have the chance to age, that every year brought new experiences and deeper understanding. This perspective became even more poignant after her death. While her cause of death was reported as following a brief illness and was not stated to be directly related to her situs inversus condition, The revelation of her rare anatomy added another layer to how people understood her life. Here was someone who had lived with this extraordinary difference in her body, never letting it define or limit her, never using it for sympathy or attention, simply living fully and creating brilliantly despite, or perhaps enriched by, her physical uniqueness. Catherine's approach to her health and her body was part of a larger pattern of authenticity and unpretentiousness that characterized her entire life and career. She was never someone who sought attention for being brave or different. She simply was who she was, accepted it, and moved forward with humor and grace. As Catherine O'Hara's career evolved and her contributions to entertainment became impossible to ignore, honors and recognition followed. In 2007, she was inducted into Canada's Walk of Fame, joining other Canadian entertainment legends. The honor acknowledged her importance not just as an actress, but as someone who had helped put Canadian entertainment on the international map. SCTV had shown the world that Canadian comedy was sophisticated, smart, and distinctive, and Catherine had been one of its brightest stars. 10 years later, in 2017, Catherine received one of Canada's highest civilian honors when she was appointed an Officer of the Order of Canada. This designation recognized her contributions to the film and television industry as an actor and comedian, as well as for her charitable work. The investiture ceremony took place in November 2018, and Catherine attended with her family. For someone who had spent her career making people laugh, receiving formal recognition from her home country was deeply meaningful. She never lost her connection to Canada or her pride in being Canadian, even after decades of working primarily in the United States. In 2021, Catherine received the Governor-General's Performing Arts Award for Lifetime Artistic Achievement, one of the highest honors in Canadian arts. The award recognized not just her commercial success or popularity, but her artistic contributions to the cultural life of Canada and the world. The award acknowledged that what Catherine had created over 5 decades wasn't just entertainment. It was art that would endure and continue to influence future generations. Beyond formal honors, Catherine received countless other recognitions throughout her career. She won 2 Primetime Emmy Awards, 1982 for SCTV and 2020 for Schitt's Creek, a Golden Globe Award, 2 Screen Actors Guild Awards, multiple Canadian Screen Awards, and numerous other accolades. But perhaps more meaningful than any trophy were the testimonials from fellow actors, directors, writers, and comedians who spoke about Catherine's influence on their work and their lives. Fellow Canadian comedian and actress Moira Rose said, "Catherine showed us all that you could be funny without being mean, that you could create characters who are ridiculous and still make people care about them." Martin Short, Catherine's friend and SCTV colleague, described her as the most fearless performer I've ever worked with, someone who would try anything and make it brilliant. Eugene Levy, her creative partner across 5 decades, said simply, "Catherine understood comedy at a cellular level. She was a genius, and she was also one of the kindest people I've ever known." At the 2025 TIFF Tribute Awards, just months before her death, Catherine accepted the Norman Jewison Career Achievement Award. During her acceptance speech, she was emotional as she reflected on her journey, thanking her family, her collaborators, and the audiences who had supported her work for so long. She joked that she was grateful to still be working at her age, to still be considered relevant in an industry that often discards older women. She didn't realize that this would be one of her final public appearances, one of her last opportunities to speak directly to fans who loved her. Chapter 10: Final Projects and Lasting Impact. Even in what would be the final years of her life, Catherine O'Hara remained creatively active and engaged. After Schitt's Creek concluded in 2020, she took on several projects that excited her artistically. She returned to the role of Delia Dietz in 2024's Beetlejuice, reuniting with Tim Burton and the cast of the original film for a sequel that delighted fans who had grown up with a 1988 classic. Playing Delia again after 36 years was a joy for Catherine, an opportunity to revisit a character who had helped launch her film career. In 2025, she appeared in The Studio, a comedy series that would be one of her final projects. Eerily, in an interview promoting the show in March 2025, Catherine joked when asked about all the tributes and retrospectives of her work. "Am I dying?" The joke, made casually in her typical self-deprecating manner, gained heartbreaking significance after her death less than a year later. It was so characteristic of Catherine to deflect serious praise with humor, to be uncomfortable with excessive attention even after decades of deserving it. Throughout 2025, Catherine appeared occasionally at events and award shows. At the Emmy Awards party in late 2025, she made what would be her final public appearance. Colleagues who saw her there later remembered that she seemed in good spirits, engaging warmly with other guests, laughing and reminiscing about the incredible sweep Schitt's Creek had achieved at the ceremony years earlier. Some observers noted that she appeared gaunt, but still vibrant and engaged. No one knew that within months, she would be gone. The news of Catherine O'Hara's death on January 30th, 2026, shocked the entertainment world. Her agent confirmed that she had died at her Los Angeles home following a brief illness. She was 71 years old. Details about her final days remained private, as her family requested, but reports indicated she had been hospitalized briefly before returning home, where she passed away peacefully with her family by her side. The outpouring of grief and tributes was immediate and overwhelming. Social media platforms flooded with remembrances from fans, colleagues, and admirers. Macaulay Culkin's "Mama, I thought we had time" message went viral, capturing the sentiment of millions who felt unprepared for this loss. Eugene Levy and Dan Levy released a joint statement. "Catherine was a once-in-a-generation talent, a brilliant actress, and a beautiful human being. She made everything and everyone around her better. We will miss her immeasurably." Tim Burton posted a photo of Catherine from the Beetlejuice set with the caption, "Catherine brought light and truth to everything she touched. The world is dimmer without her." Fans visited the iconic Home Alone house in Winnetka, Illinois, leaving flowers, candles, and notes thanking Catherine for being part of their childhood memories. The house, already a tourist attraction for movie fans, became an impromptu memorial site. Similar tributes appeared outside Second City, Toronto, where Catherine's professional journey had begun decades earlier. In Los Angeles, the marquee at the El Capitan Theater displayed a tribute message, and fans gathered outside to share their favorite Catherine O'Hara moments. What made Catherine O'Hara such an extraordinary performer? What was the secret to her ability to create characters so memorable that they became part of popular culture? Film critics, comedy scholars, and fellow performers have analyzed her work extensively, trying to identify the specific qualities that set her apart. One key element was her absolute commitment to character. Catherine never played Catherine with a funny voice. She became someone else entirely. She found the physicality of each character, the way they moved, held their bodies, used their hands. She found their vocal patterns, their rhythms of speech, their particular word choices. She found their internal logic, the belief system that made them behave the way they did. This thoroughness in character construction meant that even the most absurd character felt real, felt like someone who actually existed in the world. Another crucial aspect was her fearlessness. Catherine was willing to look foolish, ugly, or undignified if that's what the character required. In an industry that often pressures women to maintain physical beauty and sexual appeal above all else, Catherine prioritized truth and comedy over vanity. This freedom from self-consciousness liberated her performances and allowed her to go places that more self-protective performers couldn't reach. Catherine also had an extraordinary gift for finding the vulnerability in every character. Even her most ridiculous characters had moments of genuine emotion, loneliness, insecurity, hope, disappointment. She understood that comedy and pathos aren't opposites. They're intimately connected. The funniest moments often come from emotional truth, from characters wanting something desperately and failing to get it. Catherine knew how to break your heart in the middle of making you laugh. Her intelligence as a performer was evident in her choices. She never went for the obvious joke or the easiest laugh. She found the unexpected reaction, the surprising interpretation, the detail that made a moment memorable rather than merely funny. Directors consistently praised her for bringing ideas to roles that weren't in the script, for finding dimensions to characters that elevated the entire project. Perhaps most importantly, Catherine approached her work with profound generosity. She was a brilliant ensemble performer who made everyone around her better. She listened to her scene partners, reacted authentically to what they gave her, and supported their performances as much as her own. She never tried to steal scenes or dominate attention. She trusted that good work would be recognized. This generosity of spirit created collaborative environments where creativity flourished and everyone did their best work. Catherine O'Hara's influence on comedy and acting extends far beyond her own performances. She helped shape the careers of countless younger performers who studied her work, learned from her techniques, and absorbed her approach to character and comedy. Amy Poehler has cited Catherine as a major influence, praising her fearlessness and commitment. Kristen Wiig, another brilliant character comedian, has mentioned watching SCTV and being inspired by Catherine's transformations. Kate McKinnon, one of the most acclaimed comedy performers of her generation, called Catherine the blueprint for what I try to do. These tributes from younger comedians demonstrate how Catherine's work continues to influence new generations. The characters Catherine created have become cultural touchstones. Moira Rose's catchphrases entered common usage. Her wigs inspired fashion trends and Halloween costumes. Kate McAllister's desperate race to reach Kevin has been parodied and referenced in countless other shows and movies. Sally from The Nightmare Before Christmas became an icon of goth fashion and Halloween culture. Decades after these characters were created, they remain vivid in popular consciousness. Catherine's work also helped pave the way for other women in comedy, particularly women who didn't fit conventional Hollywood beauty standards or who wanted to do character work rather than be romantic leads. She proved that a woman could have a long, successful, acclaimed career based on talent and versatility rather than youth and sex appeal. She showed that comedic actresses could age gracefully while continuing to do vital, relevant work. In the academic world, scholars of comedy and performance studies have written extensively about Catherine's techniques. Her SCTV characters have been analyzed in papers and books about sketch comedy. Her film performances have been included in comedy masterclasses and acting curricula. She's been the subject of retrospectives at film festivals and comedy festivals. Her work is studied not just for entertainment value, but as examples of craft at the highest level. The impact extends beyond professional performers to regular people who simply loved watching Catherine work. Countless fans have shared stories about how her performances affected them, how Moira Rose helped them through difficult times, how Kate McAllister represented everything they loved about their own mothers, how Sally gave voice to feelings of loneliness and longing they had never been able to articulate. This emotional connection between performer and audience is the ultimate measure of an artist's impact. On a cold January day in 2026, the world said goodbye to Catherine O'Hara, but her presence remains undimmed. Her performances are immortalized in films and television shows that will continue to be discovered, celebrated, and cherished for generations. Every holiday season, new children will watch Home Alone and meet Kate McAllister for the first time. Every October, people will revisit The Nightmare Before Christmas and hear Sally's yearning song. Every day, somewhere in the world, someone is streaming an episode of Schitt's Creek and falling in love with Moira Rose's outrageous wigs and unexpected heart. Catherine's legacy isn't just in the recordings that survive her. It's in the approach to comedy and character that she exemplified. It's in the standard of excellence she maintained across 5 decades. It's in the kindness and generosity she showed to collaborators, colleagues, and fans. It's in the laughter she generated and the emotions she evoked. It's in the way she made vulnerability funny and made ridiculous characters deeply human. Her rare medical condition, the reversed heart that she lived with her entire life without knowing for decades, serves as a powerful metaphor for who she was. Catherine O'Hara was someone who was built differently from most people, who had something extraordinary inside her that wasn't immediately visible from the outside, who functioned brilliantly despite, or perhaps because of, this difference. Her heart was literally in a different place, and perhaps that physical difference somehow contributed to the unique perspective she brought to her art. She leaves behind her husband Bo Welch, her sons Matthew and Luke, 6 siblings, and millions of people around the world who feel they've lost someone precious. The grief is real because the connection was real. When an artist creates work that speaks to people's hearts, that accompanies them through their lives, that makes them laugh and cry and feel understood, they become part of people's lives in a profound way. Catherine O'Hara was that kind of artist. In her final interview, when Catherine joked about whether she was dying after receiving so many tributes, she couldn't have known how prescient that joke would be. But perhaps she would appreciate the irony, would find some humor in it even as we find it heartbreaking. She spent her life making people laugh, making them feel, making them see the comedy and tragedy that exists side by side in human experience. She did it brilliantly, generously, and with a grace that made it look effortless even though it was the product of decades of dedication to craft. Catherine O'Hara was born with her heart on the wrong side, but she spent her entire life putting that heart into her work, sharing it with audiences, using it to create characters who will live forever. She made us laugh. She made us cry. She made us grateful to be alive at the same time she was, to witness her genius, to be touched by her art. And now, as we face a world without her physical presence, we can take comfort in knowing that Catherine O'Hara's spirit, her talent, her heart, reversed or not, will continue to beat in every performance we revisit, every character we remember, every laugh she still generates decades from now. She was extraordinary. She was irreplaceable. She was quite simply Catherine O'Hara, and we were so very lucky to have her. Rest in peace, Catherine. Thank you for everything. We thought we had more time with you, but we are grateful for every moment you gave us. Your light will never dim.